Hello, my name is Payton and I'm the senior agent here at Briizy Talent Agency. We are primarily a dance agency, but we also work in commercial musical theater, creative direction, and specialty. Now, I have mainly been doing short form content, but I decided to start this new series that I'm calling Agent Office Hours, where I basically take all the questions I've been asked this week and answer them here. So today we only have two questions, both in regards to starting a talent agency. And then next week I plan to talk a little bit more about the talent side. All right, so jumping into our first question today, she's essentially asking, what can you do right now to become an agent either during or right after law school? I'm going to preface this by saying that you do not need to go to law school. For me personally, I do feel like it's been vital to my ability to advocate for my clients, but it's not necessary. The other option is if you start as an assistant or a junior agent or even an intern at another agency, that is stuff that you can learn on the job. But to answer this question specifically, I think the first thing you should ask yourself is what your goal is. If your goal is to work for an already established agency, internships and networking are the best way to go. You know, if you intern for a few months and then apply for an assistant role and then you move up to junior agent and then you become an outright agent, that's kind of the easiest way that a lot of people take this path. But I will say that the pace definitely depends on the size of the agency. I know some people who went from intern to junior agent in like less than a year, but I know a lot of others have taken close to like 3 to 5 years. But at the end of the day, I think that is kind of the best way to learn on the job and get used to that specific company's intricacies and then obviously to become an agent for them. But on the other hand, if your goal is to open up your own agency, honestly, I would recommend a completely different path. But again, it's not one size fits all. You kind of have to look inward to really know what path you should take. Yes, of course, you can work for another agency and kind of learn the ropes that way. But the reason that I personally would not recommend that is because you're going to get spoiled. An established agency already has quality talent submitting to them every single day. They also have a roster of already booking talent. They have a network of casting directors that they work with every single day. And they have access to casting networks and breakdown services. Whereas if you start your own agency, you have none of that. So if I had to do it all over again, I would break it up into who it is that I want to represent and how I can make them successful. So for question one, who do I want to represent? For me, that's always been dancers. So I need to know everything about dancers. Obviously, I was a professional dancer, so this one I kind of already had a leg up on. Whereas if you aren't familiar with the talent that you want to represent, you're going to have to learn. Now, it's not hard to learn. If you want to represent dancers, go to a dance class, go to a dance convention. Just go somewhere where you can fully immerse yourself. Obviously, you don't need to participate, but just watching really takes it a long way. Or if you want to be a sports agent, go to games in that sport. Also, don't discriminate. Go to recreational kids all the way up to pro games. You can learn a lot from any age and any skill level. At the end of the day, you want to know what you should be looking for when you're scouting and what a successful person in your chosen field already has. And as an added bonus, me going to these classes and conventions and sitting in on them helped me to network before even starting the agency. This industry is very small, so any familiarity that you can get with a casting director or a choreographer in my case, it gives me a better chance at them accepting future submissions from my future agency and, of course, bookings. And moving on to number two, how can I make them successful? So this is the bulk of the job. How can I leverage my network to get my clients booked? We're looking at what experience in negotiating contracts I can gain right now to be able to advocate for my future clients. Again, maybe that's law school, maybe that's an internship. And then we're looking at what do I need to expand the opportunity. So for me, that was continuing to network with the right people in order for me to join casting networks. All right, and then moving on to question number two, physical office requirements. So honestly, there isn't really a workaround for this requirement. What you can do is rent a virtual office. It's obviously much cheaper than a full-time physical office. My first office was virtual, and I think I only paid like $60 a month. And with that, I got the address, the mail forwarding, and I think it was like 5 hours of free conference room space each month. But I will say the problem here is that it's not a long-term solution. You can only do this for a couple months, maybe a year max. You are going to need a permanent physical office eventually, or else you're not going to be able to scale. So if you want to represent SAG talent, you have to be SAG franchised. And to preempt other questions, yes, you do want to be SAG franchised. SAG jobs aren't only more lucrative, but that status also makes your agency much more legitimate because it's like an extra layer of accreditation beyond just the state license. Also, one of the requirements to join breakdown services, which I personally don't have just because it's more actor heavy, there aren't very many dance jobs on there. But anyways, in order to get on that platform, you do have to get SAG franchised or another union. So whichever one you decide to move forward with, they're going to ask to do an office visit just to make sure it's up to standard. Now, the requirements based on location, so you're just going to have to Google your city and state, but in Los Angeles, it's basically something like photos of, I think it's the waiting room, the agent office, the sign to where your bathrooms are, your signage, and I think there's like two other things I just can't remember. But anyways, long story short, yes, you can do a virtual office in the very, very beginning, but if you want to scale and get the bigger and better opportunities that are out there, you're going to have to get an office eventually. Okay, those two questions took way longer than I anticipated, so if you stuck around to the end, thank you. Again, next week we'll talk a little bit more about the talent side, so stay tuned and I'll see you then.